Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another video upload from Aspie with Attitude. If you're watching this for the first time, my name is David. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I have autism, have speech difficulty, a speech impairment, and a speech impairment. Also have Asperger syndrome, and that's why I call myself an Aspie. And I also used to once be a train enthusiast back in the 1990s. So before I kick things off, normally, in most of the video uploads, if you're familiar with it, I normally have my Lego. And this is just one of my old hobbies that's in there, which is actually model trains. I'll come a bit closer there and just show you what I'm talking about. So I'll show you one train which happens to be the XPT Intercity. So depending if I can show you a good side, and as I bring it closer. And also, I've got another one similar to that. It's kind of the same train. So this is what I'll be talking about, is the history of those kind of trains. So I'll just put it back in the spot, and it's just not such a good idea to stack them. So now you've seen it properly, just to get the video started. Alright then, I previously did talk about trains before on this YouTube channel, which happened to be uploaded on the 9th of March 2022. I had uploaded my first train video when I explained how Melbourne tried to once have a double-decker train based on the Sydney Tangaras. This train proved unsuccessful, as I've explained this back in episode 223. You can find the thumbnail at the very end of this video. Only if you sit through the special effects animation, that's what I always do to finish off any given video contents. And you'll definitely find this thumbnail at the end. Now, I wish to move on from Melbourne having the double-decker trains, as I'll explain one of the most successful trains that ran in Australia for just over 40 years, which is the XPT passenger train, after showing you the models. The XPT is short for Express Passenger Train, adopting the idea how British Rail did modernise their passenger rail infrastructure in England. The British Rail in the mid-70s built the HST Intercity, as HST standing for High Speed Train. The British Rail HST Intercity became in 1975 one of the fastest trains built at a time in England, reaching the full velocity of 200 km per hour, and this was also called Intercity 125, since the train's velocity was at 125 miles per hour, as is all mentioned in Imperial. Now, moving away from England into Australia. The New South Wales State Government had proposed in the 1976 state election, which was under the Labor government, to upgrade the New South Wales passenger railway infrastructure. When the Labor government won the 1976 New South Wales state election, the government had put the New South Wales passenger upgrade into action. This was in August 1979 that the upgrade was going to be all based on the British HST Intercity 125 design. Commonwealth Engineering, also Comeng as in short, had tweaked and redesigned the train to suit Australia's climate and conditions, to modify cooling systems to work with hotter Australian conditions and the dustier terrain, never to be experienced over in England. It was in August 1981, saw the first time Australia had modernised its railways, only in New South Wales at the time, just talking about the passenger trains. Instead of welded steel bodies on the passenger carriages like in England, the carriages was instead stainless steel to work under all Australian conditions and Australian standard. Those were the fastest trains in Australia throughout the 1980s, which did clock up to 193 kilometres per hour. At that time, the XPT was confined into New South Wales as the services to Melbourne was proposed in 1985. The XPT was a high-speed train that only worked on the main line to destinations like Dubbo, Campsie, Canberra, Albury, Grafton and Armidale throughout the 1980s. The 1990s for the first time saw the XPT to travel outside New South Wales into Melbourne and Brisbane. When the XPT travelled outside of New South Wales from 1993, it was rebranded from Intercity into CountryLink. And this remained to be the fastest train in Australia up until Queensland Railways had introduced the tilt trains back in 1999, which clocked up to 201 kilometres per hour, which set a new speed record for any trains in Australia back then. At the time this video upload towards the end of 2022, this had just been over 40 years Australia had their XPT trains. It's at its core, it's beginning to appear obsolete and looking very tired, and for the 2020s, it's about to be withdrawn from regular service, replaced with a more modern train currently being built over in Europe at the time of this video upload that you're watching right now. It's expected in 2023 that the XPT will be decommissioned and at least a few may be preserved, and the set may return to its original red and orange colour scheme as being notable in the 80s as XPT Intercity as an excursion train. This is just all under my speculation how the XPT could actually be preserved, and will only just be dedicated for those who really love the XPTs. The XPT had been through 3 accidents, one as recent as February 2020, bound for Melbourne when the derailment killed the driver and injuring 12 passengers at Wallan, which is in the state of Victoria. Just goes to show that the trains are just getting very old and tired, even at that time. Like the Melbourne double-decker trains, I also had been on the XPT back in the days when I grew up in the 90s as a train enthusiast, as I said in the introduction. I was at the age of 15, which was on the 2nd of January 1995. I took an overnight ride on the XPT by myself, departing from Melbourne's Spencer Street at its time to Sydney, where I actually got off at Campbelltown, meeting my grandfather and my uncle on my arrival to spend 10 days with my extended family who were living up in Sydney, as they still do on this very day. And I did it all again 5 times throughout the 90s, up until I lost all interest in trains back in 2001. After that, flying had replaced my fun and joy riding the XPT trains. And now, going back a month before I began uploading my very first video content on the 26th of May 2018. So I might be talking about maybe 2nd of May 2018, so I couldn't actually remember the date. I want to talk about how I took my final trip on the XPT, which a trademark for this autistic YouTube channel was born on my very last journey that I may ever take with the XPT. It was me and my sister on that train, so we left Southern Cross Station. Well, now we're talking about 2018, and with her boyfriend coming along with us on that trip. So we stopped halfway through the trip, which is at Albury, and there was this 20-year-old individual who sat near us on my final journey on XPT, and this individual appeared to have autism. And what made me think that this individual was autistic was I was able to tell his autism from his speech pattern, he was obsessing over our backpacks. So like he had the same trademark camouflage backpack that I use on my Walk With Me adventures. So I remember he did keep obsessing over it, and the way he was stimming, and he did explain some of his clothing obsessions, but not very much of it. So like, considering that he did have his hat on backwards and was cleanly shaven, pretty much almost looking like me in a way. So like, it was in May 2018 when I was taking my last XPT journey. The autistic individual actually, for real, had his fidget spinner. And at the time of this train trip, I had never owned any fidget spinners, and I haven't even started on my very first video upload. And the autistic individual had become an important inspiration for my autistic YouTube channel, Aspie Attitude, just to seal a very important trademark for this channel. It's what that person was doing with a fidget spinner. And also, this individual on the train actually had his repeated behaviour happening, which happens to be that fidget spin nose trick. So like, he kept on doing this the whole entire time. So like, I kept on watching him actually play with his fidget spinner while I'm actually spinning this on my nose. So that was my last journey on the XPT. That's how I'm actually left to remember this. So like, he actually did it. So like, the trademark, the fidget spinner nose trick, was born on the XPT from Melbourne to Sydney. And I remember his name was Jake. And just sort of like been a friend for a trip, and never ever heard from him since I've actually stepped off that train to get to my destination. So like, before the XPT phases out, it's that way I want to make this video after how highly received this double-decker train video upload was. Yeah, since I actually felt like just doing another train video before year's out. So like, I've even showed you before, like, the model trains. So I'll let this at the very end. So I'll just show you the XPT Intercity here. So like, that belonged to my older brother. And what we were doing on our last journey on the XPT is, my brother had died a few days after. So like, me and my sister was actually travelling back up to Sydney to see my grandfather, since we were all in the grieving process. So like, that's something that rightfully belonged to my brother, and yet again. And that XPT actually rightfully belonged to me. That reminds me of my very first train trip on the XPT, and it's a fidget spinner that will probably remind me of my last trip now. So like, anyway, there we have it. So anyway, that's just a full history, pretty much based on the first time doing it. So like, if you really love this channel and love what you're doing, and you haven't done that yet, you can always show more support if you please subscribe to my autistic YouTube channel, Aspie Attitude. And also, you can ring this notification bell if you want to keep up to date with Aspie Attitude. And also, please like and share this video content around. That way, you're showing more support for my channel. So anyway, this all come to the end of this video. So like, some of the ridiculous facts between me and the trains, once again. And like, we're ever going to be taking another trip on the XPT. Like, I'm actually more keen on getting the Southern Aurora, the excursion train. So like, this is how it all ends. And I just hope you find it interesting, particularly for those who are in the trains, since that a lot of autistic individuals do love trains. I'd like to say thanks for watching, thanks for listening to Aspie Attitude, peace and respect, and see you next time.